Hello everyone. In this video we'll discuss about one of the special cases of chemical bonding, which is the back bonding. Now when you hear this word back bonding, right, what we tend to think is like something is coming in the opposite direction or backwards. Basically that is what we tend to think when we hear the word back, isn't it? But what is the actual context in this particular word is being used? So generally when we talk about covalent bond between, say for example, two atoms A and B, what we see is this bond pair of electrons will be drifted more towards the electronegative element. Let us say electronegative element is the B, imagine. So B will get what? Partial negative charge, A will get a partial positive charge. So we'll see that electrons will be drifting towards the more electronegative element. And in most of the cases, right, these electronegative elements, like you take whether it is a fluorine or oxygen, all these nitrogen, all these electronegative elements, right, they will be having lone pair of electrons on them. Okay, so depending upon the element that we choose, they will be having specific number of lone pair of electrons. Now these lone pair of electrons, let us say there is a lone pair of electron on the element B. This is the electronegative element. Maybe it is oxygen, maybe it is a fluorine, maybe it is a nitrogen, or maybe it is a chlorine. If this lone pair of electrons is used in forming a coordinate covalent bond, it is used in forming what? A coordinate covalent bond. So here the coordinate covalent bond is getting formed in addition to already existing bond between the two atoms A and B. See, the first bond between any two atoms will be what? Sigma bond. The second bond, subsequent bond formed will be what? Pi bond. So the coordinate covalent bond will be a pi bond here. The coordinate covalent bond will be a pi bond. And what do we see here? The coordinate covalent bond is from the electronegative element towards the electropositive element. So this is the donor, because for a coordinate covalent bond we'll have a donor, we'll have an acceptor, right? Correct. So here what is the donor? Electronegative element is the donor, and what is the acceptor? Electropositive element is the acceptor. Generally any covalent bond, the electrons will be drifted more towards the electronegative element, but here what is happening? This coordinate covalent bond, pi bond, is getting formed with the electronegative element as the donor and electropositive element as the acceptor. It is like this way, it is coming in the reverse direction. The electron movement is in reverse direction. That is the reason why we use the word back bonding. Okay, now we will see what are these cases where we will have this back bonding and what are some of the outcomes of the back bonding. First we will start with the basic idea of what is the back bonding. So what is the back bonding? It is the phenomena of transfer of lone pair of electrons from where? From the filled shell of an atom to the unfilled shell of the adjacent bonded atom. See, as I explained, so we should have two atoms A and B should be bonded first. They should be first of all bonded. So if the B is having a lone pair of electrons and that is contributed for the coordinate bond, the coordinate bond will be from where? The filled shell or the filled orbital of the B to the unfilled orbital of the A. That bond will be obviously a pi bond. So this is what we will be calling as an back bond. Okay, and what is the nature of the back bond? It is a coordinate pi bond. What is the nature of the back bond? It is a coordinate pi bond. Okay, and the coordinate pi bond, right, we will see when we go to the special cases of this, but the coordinate pi bond may be partial or it can be full depending upon the donating and the accepting ability of the donor and acceptor atoms. Means sometimes we'll have a complete coordinate bond, which means what? A pair of electrons will be donated, and we maybe have examples where there will be a partial coordinate pi bond, but mostly the example that we are going to discuss in our purview, right, what we will be talking about? We will be talking about what? A complete coordinate pi bond means there will be one lone pair of electrons. That will be actually what? The lone pair of electrons will be used for the sharing between the donor atom and the acceptor. Remember, in the context of the coordinate bond, right, when we say a donor, it is not like it is losing electrons, it is giving electrons for sharing, that is it. So when the B is giving electrons for sharing, this pair of electrons are still shared between A and B. But the only difference is what? In a normal covalent bond, A will contribute 1 electron, B will contribute 1 electron. In this coordinate covalent bond, both the electrons of the bond is contributed by only B. That is the difference between a regular covalent bond and coordinate covalent bond. Now, what are these donor atoms? The donor atoms are typically these second period elements which will have the lone pairs. Like you talk about fluorine, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon. Because of their small size, they will be having electronic repulsions in them. And if they are having lone pair, means the donating ability will be what? Increasing. Whether it is a fluorine or oxygen, yes, of course, they are electronegative. These elements are what? Electronegative. But the donating ability is because of the lone pair present on them. Okay, so whether it is oxygen, nitrogen, fluorine, all of them, they will have the tendency to form this back bond. And even we can have back bonding shown by chlorine also, bromine also, iodine, phosphorus, sulfur. Okay, so we can have specific examples where even these atoms can act also as the donor atoms. So donor atoms will be what? Typically our second period elements which will have these lone pairs: fluorine, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon. We can also have examples where chlorine, phosphorus, they also will be able to act as the donor atoms. So this is what is the context of back bonding. Now what we'll do is we'll try to understand this through a specific example. So let us talk about the back bonding in the case of BF3 or BCl3. So what is BF3 or BCl3? Normally boron, right? So boron, what is the arrangement? It is what? 2s2. This is the ground state arrangement, valence arrangement of boron. Correct. What is it? 2s2, 2p1. So 2s2, 2p1. This is the ground state arrangement of the boron. Now boron can form 3 bonds by using its valence electrons, but for that there has to be excitation first. So the boron will excite one of the electron from the s orbital to the vacant p orbital. So as a result, what we will get this kind of an electronic arrangement. This is what the excited arrangement of the boron. Okay. Now by using the s orbital and the 2p orbitals, the boron will be undergoing sp2 hybridization. What is hybridization in case of boron? sp2 hybridization. So we'll have boron, it will have 3 sp2 hybrid orbitals aligned towards the corners of the equilateral triangle. What is the arrangement? It is called as what? Trigonal planar arrangement. And each of these sp2 hybrid orbitals, they will be bonded to the 2pz orbital of the fluorine. So fluorine will be having what? The 2pz orbital of fluorine will be having 1 electron. So there will be overlapping of the atomic orbitals. So this is what we have as the BF3. Even BCl3 also will have a similar shape or structure. Okay, so both of them will be having what? Trigonal planar. Now after the formation of the 3 bonds, boron, if you count what is the total number of electrons, right, of boron, what is it going to be? After forming of the bond also, it will be having only 6 electrons. 3 bonds are there, so 3 to 2 is what? 6 electrons. So it is not able to reach octet. So BCl3, BF3, all these we will consider as what? Examples of the electron deficit molecules. Now boron can be stabilized if there is a way to achieve the octet. But for that, right, boron is having its one of the empty or vacant p orbitals. It is having empty or vacant p orbitals. Okay. Now fluorine on the other hand is having 3 lone pairs. Each fluorine is going to have what? 3 lone pairs. Think about it. One of these lone pairs from fluorine. So fluorine, where the lone pairs will be? So if the electronic arrangement, right, 2s2, 2p5, that is the electronic arrangement. So the pz orbital is already used for the sigma bond formation with the boron. Okay. Now we have px orbital as well as py orbital and s orbital also. Between these 3, right, s orbital will be little bit strongly held by the nucleus in comparison to the px or py. So the px or py orbital of the fluorine, if it is forming a coordinate bond with the empty p orbital of the boron, this bond, right, will be what? It will be a sideways overlap. So you see, if you have a plane, this is the plane, right? The p orbital of the fluorine will be aligned perpendicular to the plane. So the p orbital of the fluorine will form a pi overlap with the empty p orbital of the boron. So the filled p orbital of the fluorine is forming an overlapping with what? This is the filled p orbital, is forming an overlapping with what? The empty p orbital of the boron. And this is what will be the back bonding. So the 2p orbital filled one from the fluorine atom and the 2p vacant orbital of the boron atom will be forming a coordinate pi bond. So it is a pi bond, it is a sideways overlap. Okay, and it will be what? A coordinate pi bond. Why are we saying coordinate? Because the boron is not contributing any electrons. The electrons of the bond pair are coming from where? Fluorine atom. So this is what will be the back bonding in the case of the BF3. You know what we call it as? We will be calling it as, so there is a way in which we will name them. So we will call it as p pi back bond. Why are we using the word p pi? Because it is from the p orbital of the fluorine to the p orbital of the boron. That's why we are calling it as what? P pi. We will see later that we will also use the words like d pi, p pi, like that. Okay, so depending upon what are the orbitals used for the bonding, we will be accordingly naming this back bonding. Okay, now if you look at the representation, so how are we going to represent it? Look at it. So we'll have fluorine and another fluorine. Just one fluorine is sufficient to form the back bond, so that the boron will be able to reach the octet. Look at it. If this fluorine is able to form the back bonding, the coordinate pi bond with the boron will be able to reach the octet. Okay, and that stabilizes the BF3 in a way. But the thing is, there are alternative possible arrangements. How? Because if you are numbering these fluorines, imagine as 1, 2, 3. I think you are able to get where I am actually trying to go. What is it? I am trying to go into the concept of resonance. So if the fluorine 1 is able to form a coordinate bond, we can also have a possibility where the fluorine 2 is forming a coordinate bond. We can also have a possibility where the fluorine 3 is forming a coordinate bond. Okay, so all these are what? The three possible alternative Lewis representations. Okay, and the actual BF3, right? So here, if you go by these structures, what do we expect? We'll expect that two of the boron fluorine bonds will be of one type and the other third bond will be of different type. That is what we expect. But the actual BF3 molecule, all the three boron fluorine bonds will be identical and the bond characteristics will be in between that of the single bond and the double bond. The bond characteristics will be in between that of the single bond and double bond. So what is happening there? There is also the concept of resonance. What is happening? There is also concept of resonance. Okay, so as a result of it, when we try to look at the formal charge, see, in a coordinate covalent bond, right, a formal charge plus will come on the donor atom, formal charge minus will come on the acceptor atom. So if you see, the formal charges will be, partial formal charge will be on all these fluorines because of the resonance, and you see the bond characteristics will be what? It will be intermediate between that of a single bond and double bond. Actually, we cannot draw a Lewis diagram to represent resonance hybrid, right? That's why we put a dotted line. It is telling what? The bond characteristics are in between that of the single bond and double bond. But what is the reason for this kind of phenomena? It is the resonance. So there are three possibilities, right? We can have the back bonding from fluorine 1, also from fluorine 2, also from fluorine 3. So the actual molecule is going to be what? Is a resonance hybrid, and this resonance energy will also be able to stabilize the BF3. Similar type of phenomena will happen in the case of BCl3 also. BCl3 also, what are we going to have? There will be a coordinate pi bond between the filled p orbital of chlorine. There in the case of chlorine, it is going to be what? The 3p orbital of chlorine. Correct. The filled orbital will be what? 3p orbital. 3p orbital of chlorine, filled one, and 2p orbital of the boron. See, when these orbitals are having similar energy level, the overlapping will be more efficient. This is something that we will learn from the concept of valence bond theory, which means what? The 2p orbital and 2p orbital overlap will be more effective than 3p and 2p, isn't it? Because 2p and 2p, they'll have identical energies. That is the reason why what we see is that the back bonding will be more effective in the case of the BF3. Why? Because there it is the overlap between the 2p filled orbital of the fluorine and empty 2p orbital of the boron. In case of BCl3, what is it? It is the overlapping between the 3p orbital of the chlorine filled one and the empty 2p orbital of the boron. Okay, so this is about the back bonding in the case of the BF3 and BCl3. Now we'll see what is one of the outcomes of this. See, generally what we expect is boron, it is bonded to, say for example, 3 fluorines, or boron is bonded to 3 chlorines. Another molecule for the comparison is BH3. Of course, we'll study about BH3. It will rarely exist in the monomer form. It will usually exist in the dimer form like B2H6. But here we'll try to compare with BH3 only. Okay. So the idea is, if these atoms are more electronegative, because fluorine and chlorine are what? More electronegative. These arrows are not indicating the coordinate bond. So these arrows are indicating what? Just that the peripheral atoms are more electronegative. Means what? The fluorines will be having a partial negative charge and the boron will have a partial positive charge. Because of what? Because of the movement of these electron cloud. Whenever we have a polar bond, right, the electrons will be drifted towards the highly electronegative element. So what we expect is, already the boron is having less than octet structure, and further it is bonded to highly electronegative element, which means what should happen? In the case of BF3 and BCl3, the electron cloud on boron should be less. Already it is less than octet, 6 electrons only as per the Lewis diagram representation, and if the electronegative elements are pulling the electron density, the bond per electron density will be pulled more towards the electronegative element, right? So what we should have is electron cloud on boron should be less, which means what? This particular central atom is more, it should become what? More electron deficit. They should become what? More electron deficit, which means what? It should gain more Lewis acid behavior. What is the Lewis acid? Lewis acids are those substances that can accept lone pair of electrons. That is what we call as the Lewis acids. Since boron is already less than octet, it is bonded to electronegative elements, so the electron cloud on the boron should become even more less because of the partial displacement of the electron cloud towards the electronegative elements, and the boron as such should become more electron deficit, and it should result in BF3 and BCl3 becoming what? Strong Lewis acids, because they should be able to easily accept lone pair of electrons. But practically what is observed is BF3 and BCl3, right, they are weak Lewis acids than BH3. Despite the high electronegativity of fluorine and chlorine, the BF3 and BCl3 are having what? They are weak Lewis acids. They are not actually strong Lewis acids. They are weak Lewis acids than the BH3 itself. Why? What is the reason? The reason is back bonding. Just as we discussed before, right? What will happen in the case of BF3 and BCl3 is there is going to be a back bonding. Now what happens as a result of back bonding? The boron as such will be able to achieve the octet arrangement, isn't it? Because of this coordinate pi bond in both the cases, right? So here I am not drawing the resonance structure, I am just drawing one of the canonical forms. Look at it. Okay, whether it is a BF3 or BCl3, right? The boron will be able to achieve octet structure because of the coordinate pi bonds. And since it is achieving octet structure, right, will it be having a tendency to accept lone pair of electrons? See, if it is already having octet, it will not have a tendency to accept the lone pair of electrons, right? That is what is the reason why a BF3 or a BCl3 are actually weak Lewis acids than BH3. Think about it in case of BH3, right? What is the atom to which boron is bonded to hydrogen? Hydrogen has got only one electron, and it is used the one electron for forming the bond with the boron itself. So here the hydrogens, right, don't have any lone pairs. Hydrogens don't have any lone pairs to form that coordinate pi bond. That is the reason why in BH3, right, we will see that the boron will be what? Electron deficit, and as a result, right, what we'll see is that BH3 will undergo dimerization. So two molecules of BH3 will undergo dimerization to form what? B2H6. B2H6 is a very important molecule. We'll have a peculiar type of bonding in the case of B2H6. That is what we call as the banana bonding. So there is a separate video that we have made to discuss about the banana bonding, or it's also called as a three-centered two-electron bond. So maybe you can take a look at it to understand how the B2H6 molecule actually exists. But this is the reason why BF3 and BCl3, despite the fluorine and chlorine having high electronegativity, the Lewis acid strength is less for these compounds. Why? Because of the back bonding phenomena, the boron is sort of already achieving the octet, so it will have lesser tendency to now accept the lone pair of electrons than in comparison to BH3. Now we look at one more case of back bonding, that is in the case of PF3. So PF3, phosphorus, okay, it is bonding to 3 fluorines. Phosphorus is bonding to what? 3 fluorines. Now the thing is, once the phosphorus is bonded to the 3 fluorines, what we expect is, because think about it, phosphorus is going to bond itself to 3 fluorines, means phosphorus in the ground state, right, it will have 2 electrons in the s subshell. We talk about the valence orbit, and 3 electrons in the p subshell. Okay, so this is what 3s, 3s2 and 3p3. okay, so 3px, 3py and 3pz. It will undergo the sp3 hybridization. So one of the sp3 orbital will be having the lone pair, okay, and the other 3 sp3 orbitals are used for bonding with the 2pz orbital of the fluorine. Okay, so as a result, the phosphorus will be able to achieve the octet over. But when we look at the experimental data, what is observed is the phosphorus fluorine bonds, they have bond characteristics intermediate between the single bond and double bond. What is generally expected is there should be just a single bond between phosphorus and fluorine, that's it, right? As a result, fluorine is able to achieve the octet and the phosphorus is also achieve the octet. But experimentally what is found is the phosphorus and fluorine bond characteristics are what? They have characteristics in between that of a single bond and double bond. Now this can be explained only by the back bonding phenomena. So here the back bonding phenomena, right, will happen from the 2p, filled 2p orbitals of fluorine. Remember fluorine, already we talked about it. So it will have a lone pair in the S. It will have 2 of these p orbitals filled. The 2pz is basically the half filled or vacant, that is used for the bonding. It is used for the sigma bonding with the phosphorus in each fluorine. But you see this px and py orbitals are there which are having lone pairs. And phosphorus, it is an element in the third period. Phosphorus is an element in third period. So in its valence shell, along with the 1s orbital and 3p orbitals, it will also have 5d orbitals. Of course they will be what? Vacant. The 5d orbitals we will not be filling, because as per the Aufbau principle, right, when we are filling electrons into the atom, we will have to fill as per the increasing order of the energy level. So after 3p level, right, we'll fill 4s and then we'll start filling the 3d. Okay, so here this is 5d orbitals. This 5 is not generally when we say 5d, right, it means what, the fifth level d orbitals, but here this 5 is what, it is representing the number. Okay, so 5 orbitals are there like that. Okay, so these orbitals are what, 3d series. So 3d, what are these d orbitals called as, it will be called as what, 3d xy, 3d yz, 3d zx, 3d x square y square and 3d z square. These are the 5 orbitals that are there. Okay, now the fluorine will be able to donate electrons from the filled 2p orbital to the vacant 3d orbitals of the phosphorus. As a result, what we'll see, think about it. So we are going to be forming what, phosphorus is there, and we can have a coordinate bond formed between the fluorine and the phosphorus. This coordinate bond is from where to where? It is from the filled 2p orbital of the fluorine atom to the vacant 3d orbital of the phosphorus atom, and this overlapping will be called as what, p pi d pi. What is it going to be called as p pi d pi? Because it is between what, the p orbital and the d orbital. Okay, and as we have discussed, is this overlapping going to be very effective? No. Why? Because in the case of BF3, what is it that we have seen? It is an overlapping between the 2p orbital of the fluorine and 2p orbital of the boron. It is an overlap between similar orbitals. So overlapping will be what, effective. But here what is happening? 2p orbital of the fluorine with the 3d orbital of the phosphorus, they are quite different in terms of their energy level. So the overlapping will not be as effective as we have seen in the case of the BF3. Okay, but nevertheless we are going to be having a coordinate pi bond. So you can see here also we can have alternative structures. You know what these plus and minus are? These are the formal charges. Formal charge, we have a separate video on that, you can check it. Formal charge means what? Whenever there is a coordinate bond, the formal charge on the donor atom will be what? It will be +1. Formal charge on the acceptor will be what? -1. So here it is indicating that the phosphorus is the acceptor, fluorine is the donor. We can have alternative possibilities. If you are numbering the fluorines as 1, 2, 3, in another possible structure we can have the fluorine 2 acting as the donor. In another possible structure we can have the fluorine 3 acting as the donor. So if you look at the actual PF3, right, it will exist as a resonance hybrid, where each of these phosphorus fluorine bonds will have what? Partial characteristics of that single bond and the double bond. It will have intermediate characteristics between that of the single and double bond. So resonance hybrid we cannot represent by a proper Lewis diagram. That is the reason why what do we say? We will give all these canonical forms with a double headed arrow between them, and that will mention that overall molecule is going to be hybrid of all these possible Lewis representations. Okay, so this is how we'll have the back bonding in the case of PF3. And one thing we need to keep in mind always is that the existence of the back bonding, right, is to be proven through some experimental observations. Like in the case of PF3, how it is proven? Based upon the bond characteristics, whether it is the bond length or the bond enthalpy. Now there is one more important inorganic compound which is called as borazine. Borazine is what? B3N3H6. It is also popularly known as inorganic benzene. What is borazine called as inorganic benzene? So what is B3N3H6? We have a ring. We'll have a ring of 3 borons and 3 nitrogens. So it is like this. We have a nitrogen, a boron, then a nitrogen, a boron, then a nitrogen, a boron. So we have 3 nitrogens and 3 borons alternately bonded in the ring, and we have 6 hydrogens, each of them bonded to 1 boron or hydrogen. This is what is the B3N3H6. But in B3N3H6, right, it is observed that we have back bonding, because in the ring, right, when we look at the bond characteristics of boron nitrogen bond, the bond characteristics will be intermediate between that of a single bond and double bond. So how we can explain it? Now boron, it has formed 3 bonds. Each of the boron has formed how many bonds? 3 bonds, but it is not able to reach the octet. So we have seen this is the typical case with the boron, right? It will have only 6 electrons after forming the bond. So it will have a vacant, boron will have what? It will be having a vacant 2p orbital. Okay, now what about the nitrogen? Nitrogen, it has formed 3 bonds. Nitrogen has formed 3 bonds, but it will be having a lone pair. The nitrogen is going to be having what? It will be having a lone pair. Now this lone pair on nitrogen can be donated to form a coordinate bond with the boron. So if this nitrogen is donating the electrons to form a coordinate bond with the boron, this nitrogen will donate here, this nitrogen will donate here. As a result, now what we will have, look at it, we can draw a structure like this: nitrogen, boron. I am not drawing the hydrogens. Hydrogens, it is understood. We will have the hydrogens bonded to each of these atoms. Okay, so look at it, we can have a coordinate bond here, we can have a coordinate bond here, we can have a coordinate bond here. That is one possibility. What is the alternative possibility? Look at it, we can have alternative possibility. What is the alternative possible structure? We have a nitrogen, this side boron, this side boron, here nitrogen. Okay, what is the alternative possibility? Instead of the nitrogen giving a coordinate bond this side, it can give a coordinate bond here. Means look at it, here we will have a coordinate bond, and as a result what we will be having, this nitrogen, right, will form a coordinate bond with this boron. This nitrogen will form a coordinate bond with this boron. So if you are numbering the positions, like the way we do in the case of benzene, right, 1, 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6. Difference is what? In benzene all 6 will be carbons. Here 3 will be nitrogens and 3 places are what? For the borons. So what do we see in let's call them as structure A and structure B. In structure A, what do we have? Between 1 and 2 positions you have a double bond. Okay, this is coordinate pi bond. It's nevertheless a pi bond, right? Between 3 and 4 you have a double bond. 5 and 6 you have a double bond. In structure B, you have a double bond between 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5, then 6 and 1. So the actual molecule, right, this is what we have seen in the case of benzene also, right? These two are the similar arrangements. In the case of benzene, what do we call them as? Kekulé resonance structures of benzene, correct? So the actual molecule will exist as a hybrid of these two. The actual molecule will be existing as what? A hybrid of these two. Okay, so hybrid means what? Like the way we will represent the benzene, here also we will put a ring inside. The difference is what? Here 3 of these atoms will be nitrogens and 3 will be what? Borons, and each of them will be bonded to hydrogen. Just like in the case of benzene, right, each of these carbons is bonded to hydrogen, 1 hydrogen, right? Here each of these atoms are also bonded to 1 hydrogen. So that is the reason why we will call it as what? Inorganic benzene. Okay, and this borazine is also having a planar structure. What is the structure of borazine? It is a planar structure. Why it will have a planar structure? Generally in case of boron we will understand what is the hybridization, sp2 hybridization. That is the reason why it will have a vacant p orbital. But what is the thing with nitrogen? Nitrogen, what we generally expect is sp3 hybridization, right? But what happens is the nitrogen, what is the arrangement of the nitrogen? It is what? What is the arrangement of nitrogen? It is what? S2 P3. So here nitrogen also will undergo sp2 hybridization. Nitrogen also will undergo what? sp2 hybridization, where it will leave the lone pair of electrons in the p orbital that is not used for the hybridization. So as a result, right, we will have 3 electrons, 1 in each of these sp2 orbitals, because you can see here there is a sp2 orbital used for the bonding. Here there is sp2 orbital used for the bonding. Here there is sp2 orbital used for the bonding. So 3 of these electrons will be in that sp2 hybrid orbitals, one each, and the lone pair will be on the p orbital that is not used for the hybridization. As a result, the overall borazine molecule is going to be what? It will be a planar molecule. Both nitrogen is sp2 hybridized and boron is also what? sp2 hybridized. Okay, so that is the reason why we will be able to see the borazine will be not only a planar molecule, it will also have the aromatic nature because of the resonance inside the ring. And in organic chemistry we will talk about what are the other conditions required for a compound to have aromatic nature. So planar condition is one. Okay, they will have resonance, and we'll see some of the other conditions also required for a compound to actually be acting as an aromatic substance. But this is how we'll see back bonding in the case of the borazine B3N3H6. Now we can also have examples of oxygen acting as the donor atom. Like you can see OCl2. Oxygen is bonded to two chlorines, that is OCl2. Okay, both these are what? Sigma bonds. Bond should have what? Single bond characteristics. But what is experimentally found is that the oxygen chlorine bonds will have bond characteristics intermediate to that of the single bond and double bond. So how we'll explain it? Again through the back bonding. So oxygen, it will have the electrons. After forming the bond, it will be having what? Electrons in the 2p filled orbitals. Oxygen will be having electrons in the 2p filled orbitals. Okay, so this electrons from the 2p filled orbitals of the oxygen so what is the oxygen electronic arrangement? It is what? s2p4 arrangement, right? The valence arrangement. The electron pair from the filled 2p orbital of the oxygen atom will be bonded to the vacant 3d orbital. Now chlorine, what is it? s2p5. s2p5, right? After the bonding, this half filled orbital will get paired, so this is over. But since it is the third period, right, it will have 3s 3p orbitals as well as the 3d orbitals. How many 3d orbitals are going to be there? 5 of them. All are what? Vacant. So here the coordinate pi bonding will be formed between what? The 2p orbital of the oxygen atom to the vacant 3d orbital of the chlorine. And that is the reason why we can see that here the bond will be having what? Partial double bond characteristics. Okay, so now what we see is that again here there will be two possibilities. What is it? Either we can have the pi bond, pi coordinate bond towards this chlorine or towards this chlorine. So the actual molecule is going to be what? A resonance hybrid. The actual molecule is going to be a resonance hybrid between both these arrangements. So this is about the resonance phenomena in the case of OCl2 and the back bonding. And what we'll see is that even the hybridization of oxygen, right, will be sp2 hybridization. What is the hybridization of oxygen? It will be what? sp2 hybridization, because oxygen will be involving one s orbital and two half filled orbitals. The fully filled p orbital will be left out for forming this pi coordinate bond. sp2 means what? We expect the bond angle to be 120, right? But what do we see? The bond angle is coming close to 110. Why? Because lone pair will repel the bond pairs. That is the reason why the bond angle is actually decreasing. Bond angle is what? Decreasing. So generally the oxygen in water and all that, in H2O, what is the hybridization of water? It will be undergoing sp3 hybridization, correct? But here what is it? sp3 hybridization means the tetrahedral bond angle is what? 109 degrees 28 minutes, correct? But here what do we see? We will see that the bond angle is actually higher. You see the bond angle is what? More than 109. Why? Because this is the bond angle that is coming primarily from what? sp2 hybridization. sp2 means it will be 120. By why it is decreasing from 120? Because lone pair is there, bond pairs are there. Lone pair, bond pair repulsions are what? Stronger. So the bonds will come little bit closer. That is the reason why the bond angle is getting less than 120. Okay. So this is how we can explain the back bonding in the case of OCl2. And this is about the idea of back bonding, where we'll have some of these bonds between elements with lone pair of electrons and electron deficit atoms typically. Okay, typically electron deficit atoms, but we can also have atoms like the phosphorus or chlorine, which have vacant d orbitals. They can also accept the coordinate pi bond electrons. So in these cases we will be having the formation of the back bonding, and back bonding is experimentally proven, and it will even be useful in explaining some phenomena like the one that we have seen, right? Why BF3 and BCl3 they have BF3 and BCl3 they have less Lewis acid nature in comparison to what? BH3. So what is the reason? It is because of the achievement of octet in these molecules for boron because of the back bonding. Okay, so these are the things that we need to know about the back bonding, and we'll even talk about specific examples when we're discussing about the compounds of the elements in the p block.